10,000 warships appeared at the edge of our solar system. Not 100. Not 1,000. 10,000. The largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. All pointed at one small blue planet. Earth. The Zynthian Empire came expecting an easy victory. Another primitive world to add to their collection. They had conquered 47 star systems without ever facing real resistance. But they made one critical mistake. They assumed humans would react like every other species they had crushed. They were wrong. This is the story of how Earth's defenders turned impossible odds into humanity's greatest military victory. This is the Battle of Terra's last stand. Fleet Commander Zynthian stood on the bridge of the Imperial dreadnought Inevitability. His three eyes focused on the tactical display showing the primitive world called Earth. 10,000 ships for this? His second officer asked. Seems excessive for such a backward species. Zynthian's mandibles clicked in amusement. The Emperor wants to send a message. When we broadcast the destruction of their homeworld across the galaxy, every other species will surrender without a fight. The fleet had traveled for 6 months to reach this unremarkable yellow star. Zynthian had reviewed the intelligence reports. The humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel 200 years ago. Their weapons were primitive projectile-based systems. Their ships were slow and clumsy. This would not be a battle. It would be an extermination. Begin the attack formations, Zynthian ordered. I want this finished before the midday meal. Deep below the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Sarah Chen stared at the holographic display. 10,000 red dots surrounded the outer solar system in a perfect sphere. The war room fell silent. Every officer, every technician, every analyst knew what those numbers meant. Admiral, her XO whispered. Earth Defense Fleet has 847 ships. We're outnumbered 12-1. Chen's jaw tightened. She was 54 years old and had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. Since humanity's first deep space probe detected the Zynthian Empire 200 years ago, every human government had known this day would come. 2 centuries of preparation. 2 centuries of building. 2 centuries of planning. Are the civilian evacuations complete? Chen asked. Yes, ma'am. Everyone who could be moved is in the deep shelters or the underground cities. Surface population is down to essential defense personnel only. Good. Chen took a deep breath. Send the signal to all fleet commanders. Activate Protocol Thermopylae. A young ensign's hands shook as she pressed the communications button. Ma'am, that's... I know what it is, ensign. Send it. The message went out across every human ship, every defense station, every weapons platform in the solar system. Thermopylae, Thermopylae, Thermopylae. It was the code that meant one thing. Stand and fight. No retreat. No surrender. Hold the line or die trying. In Greek history, 300 Spartans had held a narrow pass against 1 million invaders. They had all died, but they had shown the world that some things were worth dying for. Today, 847 human ships would face 10,000 alien warships. The odds were worse than Thermopylae. But humans had learned something important from history. Sometimes the ones who fight against impossible odds are the ones who change everything. The Zynthian fleet split into 3 massive formations. Each formation contained more ships than Earth's entire defense fleet. Formation Alpha moved toward Mars. Formation Beta headed for the asteroid belt. Formation Gamma advanced directly on Earth. They are dividing their forces, Zynthian's tactical officer reported. The humans are retreating? On the display, the primitive human ships were pulling back from their forward positions. Some were moving behind Mars. Others were falling back toward Earth. Zynthian's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. They know they cannot win. They are running to their homeworld to make a final desperate stand. Pathetic. But on Earth, Admiral Chen smiled for the first time in 3 days. They split the fleet exactly like the simulations predicted, she said. Arrogant species always make the same mistakes. They think numbers are everything. She turned to her communications officer. Signal Fleet Commander Martinez at Mars. Execute hammer strike. Aye, ma'am. Sending now. Near Mars, 200 human ships suddenly changed course. They weren't retreating. They had been positioning. And they had brought friends. The Zynthian Formation Alpha detected massive objects moving in the asteroid belt. The sensors classified them as natural asteroids. Large chunks of rock and ice, drifting on normal orbital paths. Except they weren't drifting. Humans had spent 50 years installing drives on the largest asteroids in the belt. Drives that could accelerate chunks of rock the size of mountains. Drives that could turn asteroids into kinetic weapons moving at 30,000 kilometers per hour. Formation Alpha never saw it coming. 17 asteroids, each weighing billions of tons, slammed into the Zynthian fleet at relativistic speeds. The impacts released more energy than nuclear weapons. Shields designed to stop laser fire and missiles did nothing against solid rock moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The first asteroid vaporized 47 Zynthian ships instantly. The second took out 52. By the time Formation Alpha realized they were under attack, they had lost over 300 ships. Evasive maneuvers. Zynthian screamed. How did they? His tactical officer's voice shook. Commander, those asteroids have propulsion systems. They have been weaponized. Impossible. No species has ever. Another asteroid crashed through Formation Gamma. This one had been accelerated for 3 weeks, building up incredible speed. It punched through 6 capital ships like they were paper. On Earth, Chen watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. Humanity learned something a long time ago, Commander Zynthian, she whispered to an enemy who couldn't hear her. We learned that the biggest weapon is the one your enemy doesn't see coming. Zynthian's confidence shattered like glass. His fleet had lost over 1,200 ships in the first 30 minutes. The humans had turned their own solar system into a weapon. Reform the fleet, he ordered. Tight defensive formations. Link the shields. Nothing gets through. The Zynthian ships pulled together, creating overlapping shield bubbles. It was the standard defensive doctrine that had protected them for centuries. But humans didn't fight using standard doctrine. From behind the moon, 300 human fighter craft appeared. They were tiny compared to the massive Zynthian warships. Each fighter carried only 2 pilots and a handful of missiles. The Zynthian point defense systems locked on immediately. These small craft would be easy targets. Then the fighters did something no Zynthian pilot had ever seen. They accelerated directly at the Zynthian fleet. Not firing weapons. Not taking evasive action and just accelerating. Faster. 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 They are going to ram us, a Zynthian sensor officer shouted. Destroy them, Zynthian ordered. The point defense lasers fired. 60 human fighters exploded in brilliant flashes. But 240 of them made it through. Each fighter had stripped out everything except engines and guidance systems. The pilots had volunteered for one-way missions. Their craft were essentially manned missiles, aimed at the Zynthian capital ships. The fighters punched through the linked shields at speeds the shields weren't designed to handle. They crashed into reactor cores, bridge modules, and weapons arrays. The explosions cascaded through the tightly packed Zynthian formation. Ships that had linked shields found that damage to one ship damaged all the others. The defensive formation became a death trap. In 5 minutes, Formation Beta lost another 800 ships. On one of the fighters, Lieutenant James Cooper had 30 seconds before impact. He activated his final transmission. This is Falcon 7 to Earth Defense. Target locked on enemy flagship. It's been an honor serving with you all. Tell my daughter that her dad. The transmission cut off as Falcon 7 slammed into the Inevitability's reactor core at Mach 47. The explosion tore the massive dreadnought in half. Zynthian found himself on the backup bridge of the Inevitability's surviving section, alarms screaming around him. Evacuate to the secondary command ship, he ordered. As his escape pod launched, he watched the tactical display. His fleet was down to 7,100 ships. The humans had lost maybe 300. How? He whispered. How are they doing this? His tactical officer, also in an escape pod, answered. They fight like they have nothing to lose, Commander. Like every ship, every pilot, every crew is willing to die. That is insane. Yes, the officer said quietly. But it is also terrifying. The battle had raged for 6 hours. The Zynthian fleet was down to 5,200 ships. The human fleet was down to 340. Admiral Chen knew the mathematics. Humans were winning the exchange rate, but there were still too many enemy ships. Eventually, numbers would matter. Ma'am, her XO said quietly. At current loss rates, we will run out of ships in approximately 2 hours. The Zynthian fleet will still have over 3,000 vessels remaining. Chen nodded. She had known this moment would come. She had prepared for it. Activate the final protocol, she said. Omega sacrifice. Every officer in the war room froze. Ma'am, the XO whispered. That protocol, it requires. I know what it requires, Commander. I wrote it. Activate the protocol. The message went out to the flagship of the human fleet, the EDS Indomitable. It was the largest ship humanity had ever built. A massive carrier that housed 10,000 crew members and served as the mobile command center for Earth's defense. Captain Marcus Webb read the message 3 times before he believed it. Omega sacrifice authorized, Chen. He turned to his crew. They were looking at him, waiting. All hands, Webb said over the ship-wide intercom. His voice was steady. This is the captain. We have received orders for Protocol Omega sacrifice. Every crew member will have 20 minutes to reach the escape pods. This is not a drill. Abandoned ship procedures are now in effect. In the corridors, crew members ran to their designated escape pod stations. They knew what was happening. They had trained for it. The Indomitable was going to become a weapon. Webb walked to his chair and sat down. He was not going to the escape pods. Captain, his XO said, you have to evacuate. No, Webb said quietly. Someone needs to fly her manually. Computer guidance isn't good enough for what needs to happen. Everyone else goes. I stay. Then I stay too, the XO said. Me too, said the helmsman. And me, said the weapons officer. Webb looked at them. All young. All with families. All are willing to die. This is my order, he said. Respectfully, sir, the helmsman said. We're not following that one. Webb wanted to order them off the bridge. But he knew the look in their eyes. He had seen it in mirrors for 30 years. These were warriors. And warriors choose their deaths. Then I am honored to die with you, Webb said. In the war room on Earth, Admiral Chen watched as the escape pods launched from the Indomitable. 96% of the crew evacuated successfully. But the command crew remained on the bridge. Good luck, Marcus, Chen whispered, knowing he couldn't hear her. The Indomitable changed course, pointing directly at the center of the Zynthian fleet. Zarthek, now commanding from the secondary flagship Domination, saw the massive human ship approaching. One ship, he said. They send one ship at my fleet? Destroy it. It is their flagship, Commander. Sensors detect minimal crew. It appears to be on autopilot. A sacrificial ram? Zarthek's mandibles clicked. Primitive and useless. Our shields will. Sir, that ship, it is carrying an unusual power signature. Something in the reactor. On the Indomitable's bridge, Captain Webb looked at the display. The Zynthian fleet was pulling together again, concentrating fire on his ship. "Shields at 60%, the XO reported calmly. 45%. 30%. Webb's hands moved across the controls. He had been a fighter pilot before commanding capital ships. His instincts took over, dodging fire, weaving through space at speeds no ship this large should be able to manage. "Shields at 10%. We are not going to make it to the center of their formation." "Yes, we are," Webb said. "Divert all power from life support. Everything to engines." "Sir, that will." "I know. Do it." The bridge went dark except for emergency lights. The temperature dropped instantly. They had minutes before the cold of space killed them. But the Indomitable surged forward, faster than before. 15 seconds to optimal detonation point, Webb said. He reached for the manual trigger. It was a physical switch, old-fashioned, requiring a human hand. Because some decisions should never be made by computers. "It has been an honor," Webb said to his crew. "The honor was ours, sir," the XO replied. Webb pulled the trigger. The Indomitable's 6 fusion reactors went critical simultaneously. The explosion was equal to a small star-going supernova. The blast wave expanded at near-light speed, vaporizing everything within 5,000 kilometers. 1,900 Zynthian ships simply ceased to exist. The shockwave damaged another 1,400 beyond repair. In one moment, one ship, one crew's sacrifice had destroyed or crippled more than half of the remaining enemy fleet. Commander Zynthian stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His fleet of 10,000 ships had been reduced to 900 operational vessels. The humans still had 212 ships combat-ready. For the first time in Zynthian military history, they were outnumbered. "Commander," his tactical officer said, "recommend immediate retreat. We cannot win this engagement." Zynthian wanted to refuse, wanted to order his ships to fight to the last. But he was not human. He did not have their insane willingness to die for symbolic victories. He was a practical military commander who understood mathematics. "Signal all ships," he said, his voice hollow. "Jump to hyperspace. Emergency retreat protocol." The surviving Zynthian ships began disappearing in flashes of light, jumping to faster-than-light speed, running from a species they had thought primitive. In Earth Defense Command, someone started crying. Then someone else started cheering. Within seconds, the entire war room was erupting in celebration. Hardened military officers hugged each other. Technicians who had not slept in 3 days collapsed with relief. Admiral Chen stood quietly, watching the display as the last Zynthian ship vanished. Earth was saved. But the cost. Her XO appeared beside her. "Final casualty reports, Admiral. We lost 635 ships. Approximately 180,000 military personnel were killed in action." Chen closed her eyes. 180,000 people. 180,000 families would get notifications. 180,000 empty chairs at dinner tables. "Captain Webb?" she asked, even though she knew. No survivors from the Indomitable. The entire command crew stayed on board for the final run. Chen nodded slowly. "Make sure their names are remembered. Every single one. They saved our world." The Galactic Council chamber had never been so crowded. Every species in known space had sent representatives. The subject of discussion, humanity. Ambassador Thelos of the Confederation spoke first. "The Council has reviewed the battle recordings from the Zynthian defeat at Earth. The military analysis is unprecedented." Holographic displays showed footage from the battle. Asteroids turned into kinetic weapons. Fighter pilots on suicide runs. The Indomitable's final sacrifice. "In 200 years of observation," Thelos continued, "we believed humans were primitive. Violent, yes. But disorganized. Chaotic. We were wrong." Another ambassador, a methane-breathing species from the outer reach, projected a statement. The humans demonstrated tactical innovation beyond anything in our military databases. They turned their entire solar system into a defensive network. They used sacrifice as a weapon. They fought with a ferocity we have never encountered. Thelos nodded. The Zynthian Empire has formally requested that humanity be classified as a Tier 1 military species. This would grant Earth full representation on the Galactic Council and immediate protection under collective defense treaties. There were murmurs of agreement around the chamber. Furthermore, Thelos said, 17 species have already approached Earth with formal military alliance proposals. Everyone wants humans on their side. An ambassador from a peaceful trading confederation raised a tentacle. But should we not be concerned? They are clearly the most dangerous species we have encountered. Should we not contain them? Thelos's face split into what might have been a smile. Ambassador, I asked the same question to a human diplomat last week. He showed me their historical records. In the past, humans fought wars that killed hundreds of millions of their own species. They developed weapons that could destroy their entire planet. They have lived with the capacity for total self-annihilation for centuries. And yet they did not destroy themselves, the peaceful ambassador noted. Exactly. Thelos said. Humans understand violence better than any species in the galaxy. But they also understand restraint. They fight only when necessary. They prefer peace but are very, very good at war. That makes them the perfect ally. And the worst enemy. The vote was unanimous. Humanity was welcomed into the Galactic Council with full military honors. Admiral Chen stood in the memorial garden outside Earth Defense Command. 180,000 names were carved into black marble walls. She found Captain Marcus Webb's name and placed a hand on it. We won, Marcus, she said quietly. The galaxy knows now. You don't mess with Earth. You don't threaten humanity. Because we will fight. We will sacrifice. And we will never, ever surrender. A young ensign approached nervously. Admiral? Sorry to interrupt, but you asked to be notified. The first diplomatic ships from the Galactic Council are arriving in orbit. Chen nodded. Thank you, ensign. Tell them we will receive their ambassadors with full honors. As the ensign left, Chen took one last look at the memorial wall. You taught the galaxy something important, all of you. You taught them that humans will defend what we love. That we stand together. That we fight smart. And that we never forget those who fight beside us. She saluted the wall and walked back to headquarters. Earth had survived its first real test in galactic politics. And humanity had earned something you could not buy, steal, or fake. Respect. The Battle of Terra's last stand lasted 8 hours. Humanity lost 635 ships and 180,000 brave souls. The Zynthian Empire lost 9,100 ships and its reputation as an unstoppable conqueror. But more importantly, Earth gained something precious. The galaxy learned that day that humans don't fight like other species. We don't calculate odds and retreat when the math looks bad. We don't surrender when the enemy is stronger. We fight for our home. We fight for each other. And we fight to win. The battle made one thing clear across the galaxy. You can attack Earth. You can bring an overwhelming force. You can have better ships and superior technology. But if you threaten humanity's home, you'd better be ready to pay a price that no conqueror has ever been willing to pay. Because humans will turn our entire solar system into a weapon, we will sacrifice our ships, our lives, our everything. And we will make you regret that you ever heard the name Earth. That is why the galaxy now respects humanity. Not because we are the strongest, but because we proved we are the most dangerous species to ever threaten. We are humans. And we defend what is ours. What would you have done as Admiral Chen? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe for more HFY stories every week. Next episode, when humans taught the galaxy about guerrilla warfare in space.